Gregor. Afternoon, Paul. What stood out to you about how Montreal was able to rally from 3-1 to win that series?
They played a very similar game to the game that we played against Edmonton, and we took down the 1 and 2 score. They took down the 4 and 5 score, and played a real committed team game. Everybody was on the same page, and they were really hard to play against.
We'll go next to Paul Friesen from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
Paul, knowing how good these two goalies are when they see the puck, what kind of plays is it going to take to score?
Quick ones. So if they've got time on the puck, they just rarely ever get beat. So it will be chaos and confusion, and the ability to not let them see the puck when it's released from the stick, and so that's true of all great goaltenders. It's true of all great players. You give them time and space, and for a goalie, time and space is distance from the net and time to see the puck. If you give them time and space, they're going to make the play. So both guys control the area of their net. They're big men, but they're technical men. So their angles are so good, and their size is there that it takes a perfect shot to beat them if it's clean, if they see it. And then, like anyone, if you don't see it, it's harder to react to it.
We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, building on that, I mean, what have you seen from Carey Price in your time in the league on his ability to maybe elevate his game come playoff time? And from what you know of your goalie, how would he approach a challenge of going face-to-face with that player like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess they look at it like that. There won't be a breakaway competition between the two. So it just, what they're both really great at is seemingly staying calm and handling what's given to them, right? If they're in a game where there's an awful lot of side to side and some high end chances, they get across and make those saves. But if it's a patient game and they don't, I don't think either one of them look like they get emotionally out of control at any point, right? They're completely focused on the game and in control. Carey Price's numbers tell you, and longevity tell you, everything you need to know about his play. So two great goalies for sure. The lead story, understandable because both teams got here kind of the same way. And both will have a plan to try to find an edge on them.
We'll go next to Murat Atesh from The Athletic. Go ahead, Murat.
Thanks, Gregor. Hi, Paul. In the past, you've said when you know exactly what kind of matchup you're going to get, it almost helps you in a way, helps you run your decisions and maybe even affect the other team's bench. And I think of Philip Danault, so few players play as much minutes against top lines as he does. I'm wondering how that matchup, presumably it's against Scheifele, will give you an opportunity, or how that affects your game planning.
I mean, the challenge is knowing what you've got and what they've got. So you both come to the rink with an idea of what you're going to see from their team and from your team, and then the puck drops, and rarely on any given night is it exactly what you thought you would see. So as much as matchups are important, rhythm is also important. You don't want to take your team out of a rhythm to stay away from or to go and find a matchup. And even we looked at Connor McDavid, we would have two lines that would play against them. But because of the way power plays and penalty kill work, we had Thompson's line against them probably 4 shifts a night. So we have gone away from the heavy match that we probably ran 2 or 3 years ago. And while we were certainly always looking for an advantage, and you're also looking for a way to stop their other team's best players, we wouldn't chase it during a game.
We'll go next to Scott Billick from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Gregor, and good morning, Paul. Paul, 3 years ago, you guys came in off a 7-game series into the Vegas one, and you won that first game and then proceeded to lose the next 4. And I'm wondering, what are the pros and cons, I suppose, of being the rested team? And I guess the other way around, being a team coming off a 7-game series and having to play right away.
Yeah. So there would be advantages or disadvantages in either situation. And it all depends on what happens in the series, right? So if you've got rest, then you're rested and you've got lots of energy to push through a 7-game series. If that's what comes up between Winnipeg and Montreal, we should have good legs for that. And if you've come off a 7-game series and you've won, you've dialed right into your game, especially with the way the last 3 games went for Montreal. They're on their A game right now, so they get to stay in that rhythm. So they'll be really good out of the gate. And we're going to have to make sure that we're as simple as we possibly can be till we haven't played in a while. So we got to get back into playoff hockey as quick as we possibly can. So if you're, whatever team's able to adhere to that idea the best is the best chance of winning the first night.
We'll go next to Sarah Orleski from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Paul, what is the key to getting back into playoff hockey as quickly as possible?
First of all, probably cutting off the fact. So if you've got a long break, it usually means you won a series quickly, that you didn't become overconfident in the days where you didn't play a game in between. Getting that edge back. And then in order to do that, you've got to look for a certain simplicity in your game. And I'm just going to say it's getting back to understanding playoff hockey, right? The reason that you can't play playoff hockey all year because you just physically and mentally couldn't survive it. You just can't get to that level. And then when you have a long break, human nature takes you out of that level. So we got to get ourselves back to that level as fast as we can.
We'll go next to Joey Slattery from CTV Winnipeg. Go ahead, Joey.
Hi, Paul. We're talking about the practice earlier and the time off and just having that opportunity to get more practice than you've had in a long time. So I'm wondering just, the benefits of having that time to work with some of the guys that, joined the team this year. But on the flip side of that, is there a challenge or something that you look out for when you're going up against a team that's fresh off a comeback win in the way that Montreal did it, winning it in 7 games that are, a day off and they're right back at it?
Yeah, the challenge for us, you want to, because it's different than even the regular season, right? You want to push to a certain level of sharpness, but you also want to take advantage of the recovery that you do have. So we were focused on short duration practices with trying to peak during the practice so that we would push real hard, get ourselves to the right work level. But, we weren't running an hour and a half long practices. They were short. They've got that advantage if there is early in the game, and we're going to have to do everything we can to take it from them. Like they have that. They're so dialed into it. The rhythm and routine of playoff hockey, if you get into it, can be a huge advantage. So I think they do have that early in this game tomorrow, and we're going to have to steal it from them.
We'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Paul, truth time. What point did you turn over to maybe start watching film on Montreal? It seems like if you look at the odds at 3-1 in a series, it only makes sense to kind of focus on them. Was there a shift at all in how you guys spent your time when it became a series?
So we would have a program that we would run in terms of video and analytics, and we can run those both separately. In terms of how you watch a game, I would agree with you. It's not, from a pre-scout point of view, it's not an easy thing to watch both teams at the same time. So we had, and this was more of the function of the series, we'd actually started, so today is the first day we are an opponent. We didn't bring all the video in today and show it to them today. So we had done work on both teams from a video point of view prior to today. The only thing was left was some 5-on-5 video, and we brought that in. So we went back and forth straight through in terms of so we never actually shifted. We just made sure that we were running concurrently with both teams. It happened that we started with Toronto video at 3-1 because that seemed to make sense, and at 3-2, then the next day we went back in and started on Montreal. So we got to the same place on both teams going into today's practice, with the last kind of video session being major systems from the team that we would face. The big bulk of what we do would actually have nothing to do with either team. It would be, what did we do in the Oilers series? What's important to us? And we just reinforce that for longer periods of time.
We'll go back to Jeff for a follow-up. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just a quick one. Your team talked about blocking out the outside noise, but there was no secret that, going into that first round series, you guys had a chip on your shoulder. There was doubters, all that other kind of whatever that inspired you, if you will. you're now going to be seen as the favorites. You have home ice advantage. That chip on the shoulder can still exist, obviously, but your opponent is going to be viewed as the underdog. Is there a change in mentality there at all?
We're trying not to have one. I think we've almost more prefaced it with trying to adhere to playoff hockey, not the opponents. What does playoff hockey demand? Whether it's the Edmonton Oilers, Toronto, or Montreal, there's certain things that playoff hockey demands, and we're trying to adhere to that. So, maybe there's and you tune out the noise, but the noise comes in by the questions that they get asked, right? So I think 412 was the number I said about the questions about Connor McDavid, and then now we'll shift over and it'll go to Carey Price. And so you end up answering questions, and in some ways, those questions at times can be leading, right? And, you guys, you're the underdog. How are you going to stop these guys? Now it's how do you get to their goalie? And I'm going to kind of work hard at, our focus won't be offensive, right? We're not going to be talking about how we generate more offense on the team. A usual tell, and you see it a lot, and you see it out of this Toronto series, is the losing team says we had our chances. I mean, and it's true, because there's chances to be had, and if you score on those, you probably win the game. But that can't be their focus on how many chances can you generate, because the other team's going to get as many as you get. So we don't want to turn it into that kind of game.
We'll go next to Eric Engels from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, just listening to everything you said, and specifically off the top about both teams adhering to a similar plan, despite the fact that these series were settled in a different amount of games. I'm wondering, when the template is similar, what ends up making the difference?
It won't be which team is better when we put the teams on paper, when we line them up and decide who's got more offense or who's got more defense. It won't be that. Is each one of us, we have maybe a similar mindset, but we have different players. So in those different players, we can be good at a bunch of things, and Montreal can be good at a bunch of things, and they may not be the same things. But whatever team is as good as they possibly can be at the things that they are good at, I think wins. So we're a different team than the Edmonton Oilers. We weren't a better offensive team than we're in that series. But I think for the style of game that we can play, we played very well and adhered to what we were good at, what we could do. We were maybe better at what the Winnipeg Jets are better at than necessarily the Edmonton Oilers were better than what the Edmonton Oilers are good at, which probably just made no sense. But sum it up, the team that can be truer to itself, to be close to who they are, will have the best chance of winning.
We'll go next to Marc-Antoine Gaudin from The Athletic. Go ahead, Marc-Antoine.
Thank you. Hi, Paul. As much as both teams can say, we know these guys by heart. We've played them so often. Sometimes there's a new side of the opponent that pops up because it's playoff hockey, because different guys might step up. So you say, that the team that they do the things that they're good at, but is there a limit to the lessons that you can take from the regular season?
So yeah, we take none from the regular season, right? And the series between the two of us doesn't matter. The series between the Oilers and us didn't matter. And we would really like to think and believe that our game evolved over the course of the year, that why we beat the Edmonton Oilers was because our game was better than it had been in areas that maybe we hadn't been very good at during the year. We could score some goals, but we weren't a great defender of the game at the right times smartly. So as long as I about sitting back, we added things to our game, I think, over the course of the year. We had a very difficult 7-game losing streak. One of them was in Montreal. And it really forced us to take a look at some hard things in the game that we had to get better at, and we did.
We'll go next.
So I guess just to answer that, I think who we think we are now is different than who we thought we were 4 or 5 months ago, because I'd like to think we evolved.
Sorry, we'll go next to Simon Olivier Lorange from La Presse. Go ahead, Simon.
Hi, Paul. You said previously that both your team and Montreal Canadiens played similar style to get success in the first round. Obviously, now your opponent is extremely different from the first round. There's no McDavid, there's no Draisaitl in the Canadiens. What kind of adjustments do you expect from your guys before this series?
Oh, hopefully none. Right? We didn't play anyone on the Edmonton Oilers differently than we played McDavid. It was the exact same game through the lines. So we weren't trying to change that. I think our two teams have different styles, but both teams have the same mindset. We'll give nothing easily, right? That was what it seemed to me when I watched them play. Montreal controls the middle of the ice very well. They protected their net very well. They were very smart with how they managed the puck, and they waited. That's not a casual thing, and it's not a patient, and it's not conservative. It's not sit back. They were aggressive, but they didn't shoot themselves in the foot at any point in time. They didn't feed into Toronto. We didn't feed into Edmonton. They just come out and played their butts off and got a similar result.
Just a couple more for Coach. We'll go back to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weber.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, what can you tell us about Paul Stastny's absence today?
Yeah, I think at 35, you get a standard running option. 6 days of practice. I think he's got 1,000 games. That puts him at about 2,500 practices. So he's got the option.
And final question to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Gregor. Hey, Paul, I know that one of the themes for you and your team this year has been to appreciate the moment. And from the sounds of what I've been hearing from you and the players, it seems that part of that is really appreciating your opponent. It seems to be stronger than that, or at least bleeds into the conversations they have with us more often. I'm wondering if you think that's different than it's been at any point in past years, that there really seems to be, an admiration and a respect for the opponents that seems to keep coming up over and over again without us asking about it.
I think, Sean, that's a function of our year. When you go back to the start, we weren't considered by many a playoff team early on. And I know our record toward, let's say, Ottawa toward the end, but we played them 5 times early and played very well against them because we had they're a good team, right? They can beat you. So we had that attitude against every team we played. We just also thought that if that we could be a good team too. So it was kind of like every game we showed up, we never took anybody for granted. At the same time, we never walked into a building thinking, oh, we got no chance here tonight. It's going to be a fair fight. And that's a good way to go into the game. You want to be respectful of what the other team's players can do. So you want to, and you also want to have respect for the game itself, of what the game demands to give yourself a chance to win. And then you want to have a belief that you can accomplish those things.